They've been a consistent presence in Afghanistan for over 25 years. But following the US withdrawal from the country, the Taliban stunned the world in how quickly it took over.
I think it's a procession of the Taliban. Yes, it is. There's the white flag, and they're coming down the street.
As Afghanistan prepares for the militia to rule the country once again, who exactly are the group, and what do they believe in? The Taliban are an Islamist military organisation which ruled Afghanistan from 1996 until 2001. They believe in a hard-line interpretation of Sharia law and want to restore their strict approach to the governance of the country. For 2 decades, they've fought against the internationally recognised government of Afghanistan.
It's taken a few minutes to put it into this culvert, and you really can't tell that it's been there, certainly not in the dark.
In the early 1990s, the Soviet Union was successfully pushed out of Afghanistan by resistance fighters known as the Mujahideen. These fighters were funded and supported by the CIA as well as other Western powers. In the civil war that followed, the Taliban was the most prominent group that emerged and successfully took over the country. Theirs was a repressive regime where women and girls were denied education, music and films were banned, and massacres and executions commonplace. Afghanistan also became a training ground for terrorists. After 9/11, the US wanted them to hand over the man responsible.
All right, so when you see here, Afghanistan, okay, became a training ground for terrorists, all right, and you know, basically, you know, the Taliban, they were really freedom fighters, resistance fighters, known as the Mujahideen, and they were supported by the CIA. But see, one thing about Muslims is they have this ideology of jihad, that whoever doesn't support Islam is basically an enemy. Now, one thing that I want to say is that although Al-Qaeda and was responsible for the 9/11, supposedly the Taliban has a more of a focus with Afghanistan, while Al-Qaeda, their focus in jihad was all over the world. And as you can see in this video, it's telling you how the Taliban has had a presence in Afghanistan for over 20 years. Okay, but they were funded by the CIA, meaning that Esau is really behind, okay, these wars in the Middle East. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and play the video. Okay. And I didn't forget to say, you know, before I go on, I should say I want to give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. All right, double honors to the apostles and elders that of great millstone that rule well, and a sincere salutation to all the Akim pushing this truth and sincerity Bashem Rokak Wadash. This is kind of impromptu. I was kind of putting this lesson together. There's a lot of information. Okay, and I'm going to play this video, get some scriptures, and Lord willing, it'll be edifying.
Osama bin Laden, who had trained in Afghanistan. They refused, so the US invaded, toppled the Taliban.
Right, so basically, as you can see here, the Taliban, okay, they opened up their country for guys like bin Laden, okay, and the United States asked the Taliban to give up bin Laden because the Taliban had already took over the government. Okay, because they wanted to push strict Sharia law, you know, which is, you know, what they believe in. You know, it's a branch of Islam, and you know, bin Laden, you know, he's his belief is a strict interpretation of the Quran. So even Taliban and the Al-Qaeda had different beliefs, but they believe in Islam, you know. But and they ended up supposedly, you know, the word is that they ended up having contradictions. But you know, the point I want to make is that it's funny how in the 90s, okay, before the Taliban was named the Taliban, they were just resistant fighters. Back then they were known as the Mujahideen, okay, and they were supported by the CIA to push out the Soviets, man. You see, so Esau has never wanted to go straight head up with the Soviets. You know, he would always use, you know, in this case, you know, these so-called terrorists, man, these the Taliban, okay. You know, and as you already know, you know, today circulated, you know, it went viral that the United States has taken their troops out of Afghanistan after 20 years of occupying the Middle East, okay, and supposedly having the war on terrorism. They're finally leaving, okay. And it's funny that the government, okay, has been ousted by the Taliban. And supposedly, what were you doing 20 years there? What was Esau doing 20 years in Afghanistan? You know, if you know, Biden finally decides to, you know, take all the troops out, now they take over, like, you know, almost immediately. Something's, you know, it's very interesting. Okay, so, you know, here it is. Esau, you know, he funded the Taliban to get rid of the Soviets. You know, there was a civil war to see who would rule Afghanistan. The Taliban wins. Okay, they have a so-called oppressive regime where women and girls are denied education. You know, that music and films are banned, and that massacres and executions are common practice. You know, and that's the thing. The thing is that in their country, this is what they believe. So what does Esau have to do with going into their country and putting their beliefs, putting democracy, and trying to build up a nation? You know, and the thing is, you know, bin Laden came out in another article just recently saying that their goal was never to go in and to build a nation. But that's a lie, because when you occupy a country for 20 years, you're going to put in democracy. You're going to build up the nation to what you think it should be. All right. So it's very interesting how Esau has a hand in all this. Okay. You know. So as bin Laden goes into Afghanistan to seek refuge, you know, to other jihadists, United States comes in, you know, and blames Osama bin Laden for the Twin Tower attacks, when really the United States did that. Okay, the CIA, the government, they did that here on American soil, but they pinned it on who? They pinned it on bin Laden. They were supposed to be looking for him. Okay, so the U.S. invades Afghanistan. They take out the Taliban. Okay, and they so-called tried to restore the government, which the U.S. hoped they could rule Afghanistan, okay, on its own. Okay, but now, fast forward 20 years, the Taliban has taken over the government. You know, and supposedly the U.S. was helping them all this time. So it's very interesting how Esau's in all this. He's in the background. All right, and you can watch this video for your own. And I suggest you watch this, man, because this is prophecy. This is world news. Okay, and it's very interesting, very, very interesting. You know, and this is impromptu, so Salakia, from all over the place. It's just there's so much information I've been writing down. I've been watching videos, and it just, man, you know, it's just funny how Esau is just involved in all this. So let's go ahead and play a little bit more.
And installed a government which they hoped would be able to run the country on its own.
The Taliban regime is coming to an end.
Their leader is Hibatullah Akhundzada. He has ultimate control over political, religious and military affairs. Mullah Abdul Ghani Barada is the deputy leader and co-founded the Taliban. He now heads the political office and is part of their negotiating team with the Americans. Sirajuddin Haqqani is the head of the Haqqani network. The US have called it a terrorist group, and it's infamous for its use of suicide bombers. The Taliban have commissions, essentially departments of finance, in the last decade. In 2009, a survey found that just...
Yeah, so that's all about I wanted to get on that. But when you get a chance, you can watch this video. It's called Afghanistan, Who Are the Taliban? Okay, and this is what I was speaking about. This is the... this has gone viral. Okay, it says here, hundreds of people run alongside a U.S. Air Force C-17 transport plane, some climbing on the plane as it moves down a runway of the international airport in Kabul, Afghanistan, Monday, August 16, 2021. Which was today. Thousands of Afghans have rushed onto the tarmac at the airport, some so desperate to escape the Taliban capture of their country that they held onto the American military jet as it took off and plunged to death. Okay, so some people tried to get on the plane, some actually got on it, and the plane took off and some fell. Okay, because they're trying to escape the Taliban capture of their country. Now, as I've been saying, it's very interesting how the U.S. has been in Afghanistan for 20 years, okay? 20 years, and has not been able to get rid of the Taliban. Now, mind you, like I said, and like how the video stated, the Taliban, it formed, okay, because they were trying to, they wanted the government to be ruled by strict Sharia law. And to the eyes of Americans, it's radical, that's extreme, because Muslims, they know that Esau is the devil and Satan. You see, and that's why they put that in the video, that women and girls were denied education. Well, in the ancient world, it wasn't like that. The scriptures, they say that let not a woman teach or a super authority over the man. So they, in the Eastern world, they still have those same type of beliefs. Okay, so America has always tried to make, these Eastern countries, especially the Middle East, look barbaric and whatnot, when really the savages really are these Edomites. Okay, they, and under the Taliban, they would not allow music and films. And if you look at it, the media in America is very disgusting. Okay, so they didn't want that in their country. They don't want the media circulating like how it does here in the Western so freely, all right? And they used to hold massacres, and public executions were a common practice. So, in the ancient world, these things were, this is the way it was, So, problem, reaction, solution, United States, one of their many objectives was also to take the oil from the Middle East. So, they orchestrated the 9/11, okay, blamed it on Bin Laden, who Bin Laden was already a jihadist working and living in Afghanistan. He hid under what? The Taliban, when they ousted the Soviets and then ousted their government because they weren't strict enough for them. Okay, so now, you had so-called terrorists running Afghanistan. So America had plenty of reasons to go in there. Okay, they had Bin Laden, they had the Taliban, who were ruling through strict law, through an ancient law that's kind of somewhat similar, I should say, to what we believe. You see, and after 20 years, they take off. Esau finally takes off out of Afghanistan, and the Taliban's right back in there. So it was all in vain, and ultimately Esau had his hand in all of it. Okay, so it says the Taliban's occupation of Kabul began Sunday following the Biden administration withdrawal of U.S. troops from the region. You see? It says at least 7 individuals have been killed in the chaos at Kabul's international airport on Monday as thousands of Afghans desperately attempt to flee the Taliban's capture of their country, according to the senior military official speaking on a condition of anonymity to the Associated Press. Videos circulating on social media show hundreds of Afghans running across the tarmac as U.S. troops fired warning shots in the air. One showed a crowd pushing and shoving its way up a staircase, trying to board a plane, with some people hanging off the railings. Another shows several individuals plunging to their death after attempting to cling onto a U.S. Air Force C-17 transport plane as it took off. Okay, so it says here, the Taliban's occupation of Kabul marks an end to the United States' 20-year effort to rebuild the nation after the withdrawal of the U.S. military from the region. So after 20 years, okay, to rebuild the nation, they withdraw, and all of a sudden the Taliban takes over, like almost instantly. It's very interesting, okay, that, you know, that's very interesting. And in other news, look at this. Biden says Afghanistan was never about nation building. No? Okay, that's funny. Let's look at this guy, what this guy says. Let's see. Where is it at? I had a video here, if I may.
In just over 1 month, according to President Biden, the U.S. will have completed its withdrawal from Afghanistan. After 20, Minister Khan, he was in Islamabad.
This is the ruler of Pakistan. Listen what he says.
Pakistan's capital when we spoke this morning.
Now remember, this guy is the neighbor to Afghanistan. So if anybody knows about what went on there, it was him. Because the United States asked this guy, okay, on your screen, to basically help fight the war on terror, okay? In which he did, which he said the United States basically asked him to be a hired gun. Okay, now, one thing that many people don't know is that the Taliban are, most of the members are from the Pashtun tribe. Now, there's also Pashtun people in Pakistan, which is his country. So for him to basically try to find, okay, you know, Taliban, okay, for the United States was hard because basically these people are not in uniform. They're like what you know, urban guerrilla warfare. They're in their own civilian clothes, right? So, but listen to what this guy says.
Prime Minister Khan, thank you very much for joining us. Let me start by asking you your assessment of the situation in Afghanistan right now with U.S. troops almost completely out after 20 years.
Well, Judy, I think the U.S. has really messed it up in Afghanistan. You see, first of all, they tried to look for a military solution in Afghanistan when there never was one. And people like me who kept...
Right, there never was one. There never was one. Because first of all, the Twin Towers was created by the CIA. They did that. There was no terrorist on no plane. If anything, you know, it was detonated by bombs. Okay. Second of all, the country, Afghanistan, you know, really, if there's a war within a country, what does another country, what business do they have in there? They don't have no business, right? Now let's continue. That's basically what he's saying.
That there's no military solution, who know the history of Afghanistan. We were called, people like me were called anti-American. I was called Taliban Khan. For anyone who objected to this way of, I don't know what the objective was in Afghanistan, whether it was to have some nation building or democracy or liberate the women, whatever the cause was, the way they went about it was never going to be the solution. So when they finally decided that there is no military solution, unfortunately, the bargaining power of the Americans or the NATO forces had gone. When there were 150,000 NATO troops in Afghanistan, that was the time to go for a political solution. But once they had reduced the troops to barely 10,000, and then when they gave an exit date, the Taliban thought they had won. And so therefore it was very difficult for now to get them to compromise. It's very difficult to force them into a political solution. So because they think that, you know, they won.
Well,
all right, so, you know, and you can watch this video. If I remember, I'll put all this information in the description box because it's very interesting. It's very interesting. Esau is involved. He has his hand, okay, in all of this, because ultimately he backed, okay, those who, the original Taliban, he backed them, okay, when they were fighting the Soviets, okay, so, you know, and now he, you know, pins this, the Twin Towers on this mystery jihadist, Osama bin Laden, who they said they captured, but we don't know that for a fact, what really happened to that guy, okay, some say that he was actually killed 10 years, okay, before the Twin Tower attack, so they were chasing a ghost. That's one theory, okay, but nonetheless, you see, this guy says that he don't know what their occupation was. Was it nation building? And this guy says what? Biden says Afghanistan was never about nation building, okay, but that's not true, okay. It says America's mission in Afghanistan was never about nation building, and its only national interest there was to prevent terrorist attack on the homeland, U.S. President Joe Biden said Monday in televised remarks, which was a lie, because you're not going to be in a country occupied for 20 years and not really try to build up the nation. Plus, it's known that America and other Western powers built a road around Afghanistan. So they were there building. They were there trying to, you know, establish democracy. Bush, he also came out and said that since the Americans left Afghanistan, that the women were in danger. Okay, but in reality, that's their country, that's their culture. You let them be. But Esau is what? He transgressed by wine. Okay, and I'm gonna get to that. And you can read this one too. It says, under immense political pressure from both Republicans and fellow Democrats, the president cut short his stay at Camp David and returned to the White House. The remarks, which were not initially on his public schedule Monday morning, sought to defend his April decision to withdraw, what has since resulted in a Taliban takeover. While he admitted that the situation did unfold more quickly than he had anticipated, the president stressed that this was the right decision for the U.S. American troops cannot and should not be fighting in a war and dying in a war that Afghan forces are not willing to fight for themselves, he said. Well, you know, 20 years, you know, now you say this after 20 years, it's a little too late, you know, so it's very interesting, you know, and normally I can put all those articles and those videos in the description box, but I want to start here. This is This is Habakkuk 2 and 4. Behold, his soul which is lifted up is not upright in him, but the just shall live by his faith. Right? And the soul of these Edomites is not, it's not upright. Okay? But the just shall live by his faith. Okay? Yea, also because he transgresseth by wine, which is his philosophies. Okay? Now, he thought that he could go in there and take their oil, take their resources, change the way their women, you know, deal with their men. And you know, basically set up democracy and set up puppet leaders. You see what I'm saying? And you know, do their will. But ultimately, you know, really, you know, his objective was to just spread his wine. You know, and after 20 years, you know, he gets up and leaves. Okay, and the so-called people that he was fighting just take over like the very next day. It's very interesting. You see? Yea, also because he transgresses by wine, he is a proud man, neither keepeth at home. Right? He don't. What is he doing over there? See, that's what the guy in Pakistan was saying. The neighbor, you know, he in that interview with that woman, he said that he was basically a hired gun for the United States on the war on terrorism. It says, neither keepeth at home, who enlargeth his desire as hell. Right? There he goes in the Middle East. He also went into Saudi Arabia and took out Saddam Hussein. He also went into Libya and took out Gaddafi. You see, so this Edomite's interest in these countries is far more than what people think. You see, these countries operate in their own culture and in their own way. Okay, but he goes in there and spreads his democracy and helps, you know, their civil wars and whatnot, which ultimately, you know, the history goes even deeper. You see what I'm saying? But for the lack of time, I'm just bringing out this part because, like the video mentioned, he actually backed, okay, the Mujahideen, which became Taliban, against the Soviets, man. So the story goes deep, man, with these devils, right? who enlargeth his desire as hell, and is as death, and cannot be satisfied, but gathered unto him all nations, and heapeth unto him all people. You see? Now he's over here, okay, in all these countries, gathering all these nations, heapeth unto him all people, because he really wants to be the Most High. He wants to rule. He wants to control by his means. Let's see. Let's get this word heapeth. See what it means.
Strong's H 6908. Kavats. Kavats.
To gather together, to take away, right? He gathers these people. So-called says he's going to bring peace to the country. Okay? And he takes away their resources. Okay? Gives them money, gives them medical supplies, gives them democracy, gives them all this stuff for what? Just to ultimately corrupt them. To corrupt these officials and corrupt their society. And if there's civil war between a country, what does the United States have to put their nose in it? Okay, especially if they're fighting their own their own political wars and whatnot. But really, it's all instigated by Esau. Really, when you go deep into the history of it. Gather unto him all nations, and heapeth unto him all people. Shall not all these take up a parable against them? Now, we just read, or Salaki, we just saw the president of Pakistan. What did he say? He said that the U.S. messed this thing up, because really they did. They did more damage than they did good, okay? Because if their women want to walk around with their head covered, hey, that's their business. But no, they go put in the ideology into women that they need to be showing their bodies, that they have, freedom to do this and that. And, just like, he did in the garden with Eve, okay? It says, shall not all these take up a parable against them? See, and all these countries are starting to see what type of devil Esau really is. It says, and a taunting proverb against him, and say, woe to him that increaseth that which is not his, how long? You see, and ultimately, the countries are starting to look at America like, man, this guy, they have gotten rich off the ill dealings of all the nations. They're taking up this parable against them, man. They're starting to say, how long? How long is this going to go on? Because ultimately, a lot of nations are going to start to hate the whore, which is what? America. It says, and to him that ladeth himself with thick clay. Now that thick clay is debt. Okay, he has a lot of debt because he's spending money on wars. He's spending money on stimulus checks and on giving people EBT money for this pandemic and all. He's just printing money out of thin air, and ultimately the society's going to crash. For all their ill dealings. It says, shall they not rise up suddenly that shall bite thee, and awake that shall vex thee? Right. Suddenly they're going to come up. They're going to bite America. They're going to vex America. Okay. And thou shalt be for booties unto them. America's going to be spoiled. Okay. It's going to be destroyed. Many nations are going to rise up, mainly Russia. Okay. And Iran. It says, because thou hast spoiled many nations. You see. Let's get this. Where's that word?
Strong's H 7997. Shalal.
Right.
Shalal.
Right. It says to spoil, plunder, take spoil. Right. They have spoiled many nations. They have plundered. They have raped and robbed many nations. It says, because thou hast spoiled many nations, all the remnant of the people shall spoil thee. Right. Those that remain, those that remember what you've done, because these presidents, they have sons, man. They have there's people that still remember Hiroshima and Nagasaki that in Japan that are waiting to just get their payback, right? Because of men's blood and for the violence of the land, of the city, and of all that dwell therein. Woe to him that coveteth an evil covetous to his house, that he may set his nest on high, that he may be delivered from the power of evil. And that's what they do. You know, they covet all these other nations' resources and their goods, and then they ultimately backstab them and have ill dealings with them so that they may set up their power structure in the world, that they may rule the earth, okay, by swindling these other nations, right? It says, thou hast consulted shame to thy house by cutting off many people, and hast sinned against thy soul, right? So and they're being exposed, and they're ashamed. That's why they're seeking to please the poor by giving money out, right? Okay, but they've been cut off many people. They have sinned against the soul. The Lord has seen the wickedness of these elites, so-called elites, these Edomites. Okay, and America, their military power. You see, and London, which is their financial backing, and the Vatican, which is the religious witchcraft and all that. The Lord's seeing these Edomites and their work. Okay. 15th verse. I'm going to jump down to the 15th verse. Woe unto him that giveth his neighbor drink, that puttest thy bottle to him, and maketh him drunken also, that thou mayest look on their nakedness. And that's what they did, right? They gave their neighbor, okay, in this case, Ishmaelites, okay, the bottle, you know, their philosophies, and made him drunk. They got drunk off their philosophies, off their dealings, and now everyone's looking at them and their nakedness, meaning now even the leader of Pakistan is being questioned by the lady, you know what I mean? All these different questions on, you know, one of the last questions she asked him, so are you going to sit back and watch the Taliban rule next door? You know what I mean? And their views and oppression towards women. He's like, that's none of my business, basically. You know what I mean? He also said that because she tried to question him on the rape and how it's gone up in the Middle East. And he said, well, it's because the women have been basically showing more of their bodies since the occupation of the Americans. You see? So this is the bottle that America put to these Middle Eastern countries. They go over there, democratize it, and sit back and watch their people fight one against another, especially the women against the men. And this is just the many ways Satan works, okay? Woe unto him that giveth his neighbor drink, that puttest thy bottle to him, and maketh him drunken also, that they may look on their nakedness. Thou art filled with shame for glory. Drink thou also, and let thy foreskin be uncovered. You see, and the thing is that this is scandalous, man. All right. Anytime you have Afghanistan people, they like the Americans now. They're over there trying to jump in their plane and trying to leave with them because supposedly the Taliban is the monster that they've created. Okay, by the media. America created the Taliban to be a monster, but the Taliban is really these people's families. You see? So it's a lot of nakedness and shame on these other countries, you know, orchestrated by Esau. You see? And they're being uncovered because look at this. You know, some people try to get on this plane and they fell off the plane because the plane took off and they couldn't get inside, so they fell. That's shame. That's nakedness. This scandal. Every time America's mentioned in the news is scandal. You see? It's scandalous. America's a damn freak show, man. Seriously. Thou art filled with shame for glory. Drink thou also, and let thy foreskin be uncovered. Right, your philosophies are making you drunk. You're exposing yourself. Everything that you've done is being exposed. Okay, and your foreskin's being uncovered, meaning your private parts, your dealings, your evil and wicked backhand dealings is all coming out. And all it takes is a little bit of research. You know, it's a lot if I'm all over the place. But this is impromptu. You know, I kind of got to hit the hell, you know what I'm saying, to go to work tomorrow. But I was just reading all this stuff and I was tripping out. You really have to research, okay, what's really been going on these past couple of years, you know. And that's the thing, you know, men, you know, us Israelites are so, you know, busy with work and with family, and you know, even in this truth now that you can't even go back and research all this stuff. You have to, you know, stay, you know, up to date. So you got to dig in the archives and get all this info, man. But their foreskin is being uncovered. All their ill dealings are coming out. It says, the cup of Yahweh's right hand shall be turned unto thee, and shameful spewing shall be on thy glory. And this is a shame. It's a goddamn shame what you devils have done. You done been involved in all types of unrighteous dealings. Okay, and basically you're being ousted. Okay, first and foremost by the prophets, by the spirit of Yahweh, by Shem Yahushai, by the mouthpiece of the Lord. You know, and basically the whole world. You know, this stuff is all over. You see, and you can't hide it. You know, the spirit is revealing you. All right, so I just wanted to bring this out, Lord, when this was edifying. Salakia, you know, if I was all over the place. Okay, and I want to give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem Yahushai, double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone that rule well, and a sincere salutation to all you Akim out there pushing his truth and sincerity, Bahashem Ruach Kodash. Lord willing, this was edifying. I want to say Shalom.